Today I'm speaking with Lindsay McCarthy, who is the co-author of The Miracle Morning for Parents and Families. And if you have not read the original Miracle Morning book by Hal Elrod, I highly suggest doing so. It's changed so many lives, mine included. I would not be where I am today without it. So go check it out. And today, Lindsay is going to go through not just the Miracle Morning, how she uses it, but she's also going to go through how she's adapted it to use with her kids and with her family and the benefits that it has brought. I'd like to welcome Lindsay McCarthy to our show today. She is the author of The Miracle Morning for Parents and Families. And hi, Lindsay. How did you come to write this book?
Hi, Jessica. Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. And yeah, so the story of how we wrote the book is in 2014, we heard Hal Elrod give a keynote at a conference called the One Life Fully Lived Conference. And after hearing him speak, Mike and I were just like, we need to try this Miracle Morning thing. Like, we had a spiritual practice in the morning, but we weren't very consistent. And speaking for myself, especially, I was using our kids as an excuse as to why I couldn't be consistent. So after hearing Hal and his message of kind of like, there are no excuses, I was like, yeah, I've been pretty lenient on myself. So I'm going to start doing this. And as Mike and I started doing it, waking up earlier to work on ourselves, our kids started interrupting us. And we're like, okay, now we have a new problem. And it took my 2-year-old at the time, Ember, to say, Mommy, I want to do what you're doing, for me to have this aha moment like, oh, right, why don't we teach them how to have their own miracle morning? So we started teaching our kids what the lifesavers were, and we would meditate with them, and we started creating these homemade affirmation books with them so they would have their own affirmations. And we started reading with them in the morning and getting them to just do some like creative play or, work on their writing, because a 2 and 6-year-old, they don't really know how to write yet. So scribing was kind of hard for them. And so flash forward, at the same conference in 2015, Mike and I were also speakers there. So on the Friday night, they have this welcome reception for all the speakers. So Hal was there, we were there, and I just kind of went up to him at the party, and I was like, hey, I want to thank you for writing the Miracle Morning. We've been practicing it, and we started teaching our kids, and it's really been a bonding experience for our family. And he's like, this is so cool. He's like, my kids don't do it. He's like, tell me more. And I was like, actually, my son is here, and he would love to meet you. And he's like, yeah, bring him to breakfast. So at breakfast, Tyler comes down, and he has his little affirmation book, and he's saying his affirmations for Hal Elrod. And Hal's like, this is so cool. Like, can I take pictures? Like, I want to feature you guys on something. We're like, yeah, sure, whatever you need. And so we leave the conference, and then 2 weeks later, I have these poems in my head. I like wake up in the middle of the night, and I start writing. I'm like, to explain the savers to kids in a simple way. And they were just like little haiku poems. And I emailed it to my husband first because I was scared to send it to Hal. So I sent it to Mike, and he's like, these are really good. You should send it to Hal. So I sent him off to Hal, and the next day he wrote me back, and he was like, hey, I think we should write a book together, maybe, Miracle Morning for kids or parents or something. He's like, this information needs to get out there. And I said yes, and we signed the contract, and
that's amazing.
6 months
actually.
Later, we had a book.
So for people that don't know Hal Elrod or what the savers are, the Miracle Morning, can you describe that?
Sure, yeah. So the Miracle Morning in a nutshell is basically wake up sometime before you have to work on yourself, and it follows an acronym called the Lifesavers, which stands for silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. So those are the 6 practices you do each morning once you start getting up a little earlier.
And how has that helped you as far as being a parent, being a mother? Do you feel that, because it's hard to find time for those things, but do you feel like it's made a difference?
I think it's made a huge difference because I get to fill myself up before, they enter my day and need my attention. So I get to love on myself basically before they need me, and then I can offer them more love. And so it's made a huge difference in my parenting, my patience level with them. When I get to work on me first, then it's so much easier to be patient with them and more loving. So
Right.
yeah, it's made a huge difference.
And I want to talk about what you do with the kids, but maybe first, can you perhaps just talk about why self-care is so important when you're raising children? Because I feel like that's one of the first things to go for many people, myself included sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I'm naturally pretty introverted, so having 2 young people that need a lot of my attention is very draining for me. So to really have that me time and self-care time when I'm filling myself up, doing the things that I need to do for me first thing in the morning, I don't know how I'd make it through the day without it, honestly.
I actually I'm not as consistent as I should be with it, but when I do it, it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So if you're out there listening to this, I highly recommend reading House Book and really, really trying this.
Yeah, and I'm not perfect either. Like, I'm not a robot. I don't do, the full practice every single day, like a whole hour. Like, no. There's days when I'm sick or the kids are sick or they woke me up in the middle of the night, and, that's when you keep the 6-minute version in your back pocket. So you're just like, I need to take a quick breath, like offer myself some grace and gratitude and go on with the day. And so I highly suggest that to people if they're like, how do you do this all the time? I'm like, I don't. Like, I'm human.
Lindsay, can we stop for some reason? Maybe I need to check maybe it's my internet. I'm not for sure. Can we go back and just start right there where you were talking about this, and I can edit it then?
Yeah, which part?
Let's just start where you were talking about how you're not consistent.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not perfect either. We're all humans. And, on the nights when the kids wake up or they're sick or I'm sick, that's when I kind of keep the 6-minute version in my back pocket. And, I can offer myself some grace and just offer some gratitude, read one little quote that I love, the one from Marianne Williamson that says something along the lines of, if you're playing small, then you're not being of service to the world. So let your light shine because it allows others to do the same. So that's kind of one I keep by my bedside, actually. So on those days when I just know I'm not going to have the full time to do what I want to do, I read that quote and offer gratitude.
I think we all have to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
And what do you tell people that say, I'm not a morning person, I can't do this?
Yeah, I'm not a morning person either. And actually in the miracle morning world, I wake up really late. So, but, it's wake up before you have to. And we've kind of purposely designed our lives that we don't have to wake up early. So, I homeschool our kids, and we don't have to be out of the house at any certain time most mornings. So I usually wake up around 6:45. The kids usually get up around 7. So I have those 15 minutes to kind of do my meditation and reading, and then I do all the other stuff with the kids.
So that brings us to, what is your routine with your kids?
Yeah, so in writing the book, Tyler kind of came to us and he said, Mommy, I don't get it. Why do I have to save my life every day? And, I kind of took a step back and thought about it. And I'm like, from a kid's perspective, that really doesn't make any sense. Like adults kind of turn to personal development when we kind of hit a rough patch or, we kind of want to reinvent ourselves. But kids are brand new and they're, from their perspective, he didn't get it. So I was like, well, we don't have to call it that. Like, let's make it our own. And so we started playing with the words of the savers. And the first one we changed was scribing because at 2 and 6, they really couldn't do that anyway. So we changed that to creativity. And I was like, you guys can play with Play-Doh. You can draw. You can paint. You can do anything that's independent and playful and, that you're building something or creating something. And they were like, okay, cool. And then we expanded on exercise to also include a healthy breakfast. So we called that health. We kept affirmations and reading the same. And then we combined silence and visualization into a category we called meditation. And then we added an S called service. And service in our household is basically family contributions or chores. And, the kids, that's my favorite one actually, because every morning the kids are like, oh, Mom, what can I do for service? And so I get to tell them like, hey, can you help me organize the laundry or, unload the dishwasher? Simple things, but they're getting to contribute and I'm not having to nag them to help me with these things.
That's awesome, actually.
Yeah. So kind of what our routine looks like in that is, I'll do my meditation and usually start my reading. And then when they come downstairs or I hear them upstairs, I get up and we all have breakfast together. So that kind of covers health. And then after breakfast, I'll get them set up with some sort of creative project. And while they're doing that is when I usually do my journaling. And then after we're done that, we all exercise together. After exercise, I do a second meditation with them, like real short. I usually guide them for that meditation. So, I'm not really doing it because I'm guiding them. But,
right.
And then we do service after that. So whatever chore we have to get done that morning, we got to unload the dishwasher or just straighten up the house, whatever it is, we kind of all do it together to make it more fun and and then stuff.
And how long does all of this take you from beginning to end?
I mean, it kind of depends on the creativity. Sometimes they'll get lost in that. So some mornings it takes an hour. Some mornings it takes 20 minutes.
Right.
It's really different every day. And because we have the flexibility, since we homeschool, they can take an hour if they want to. And and some days it actually takes much, much longer. But we have a rule in our house that there's no electronics until your Miracle Morning is done. So that's kind of like a little extra incentive for our kids to do it. And sometimes it'll be like 3 p.m. and Emmy's like, hey, Mommy, can I have my iPad? And I'm like, I don't know. Did you do all your charms? And then we get to go through them. And, I'm like, what did you do for creativity? And something we've discovered is that the charms are really our family values. So every day we're reiterating our family's values to our children. And it's really changed the conversation in our household. So instead of, getting that question, Mommy, can I have my iPad? And me just having to be like, no. And they're like, but why? Now it's, because there's more important things in our lives than entertainment or, whatever you want to use your iPad for.
And you're creating memories on top of it too, which I love.
Right.
Because those are all things that they'll remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now the question is, well, did you do your charms? And, there's still complaints. Like, I have a 5 and a 9-year-old. They're normal 5 and 9-year-olds. It's like they don't want to do it most mornings. But
has the process changed as they've gotten older? Has the routine changed at all?
To some extent for Tyler, I mean, he has his affirmations memorized now, so he can just kind of spout them out. And he's become a lot more independent. Like, he'll make his own breakfast. Sometimes he'll even make me breakfast and Emmy. And yeah, so it's so cute on the mornings he does that. He's like, Mommy, I already did my service. I made you breakfast. Like,
You can't argue with that.
No, you can't. I'm like, you nailed it.
That's great. So I know you have a more flexible schedule, but there are probably some people listening to this saying, how do I have time for all of this? Especially single mothers that are rushing out the door to a job. How do you do all of that and get to work on time?
Right. Well, there's this thing called habit stacking. So, I mean, everybody has a morning routine, whether they want to admit it or not. It might not be a very effective one, but, everybody wakes up in the morning and they do what they have to do to get out the door. So, I mean, every morning you probably already eat breakfast. You probably already brush your teeth. You probably already get dressed. So you can start stacking the savers or the charms on top of the things that you already do in the morning. So say you're at breakfast, you're going to start reading, and you're going to read, start small, read a paragraph, read a quote, buy a book of 365 quotes and then keep it on your breakfast table. So every time you're sitting at the table eating your breakfast, you read a quote. And it's just starting small and putting the habits on top of habits you already have. So, I brush my hair every morning. I say my affirmations while I brush my hair because it's like that little reminder, like, oh, when I pick up my hairbrush, I'm going to say my affirmations. And then I'm looking in the mirror already. I say them out loud, brushing my hair. Done.
Right.
So that's the biggest strategy I would give people, that if, you're like, I don't know where I would fit these things in. Like, you just fit them in on top of things you're already doing. Say you have a commute, pop in an audiobook instead of listening to the radio. Like, then you're getting your reading done while you're driving to wherever you're going. So.
And so it's just doing little things. So it's just doing little things on top of what you're already doing. And over time that expands.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just building that muscle at first. Like, okay, I want to start, journaling. So every day I'm just going to write down one thing I'm grateful for. It takes less than a minute to do that, but it's building that habit. And then you can be like, oh, I do have a little bit more time than I thought. Now I can write for 5 minutes a day. And then, you're like, oh, if I wake up 10 minutes early, I can write for 10 minutes a day. And, I always encourage people to make the savers your own. Like, the savers is just a really loose framework. And, silence, there's so many different ways you can be silent. You can listen to a guided meditation. You can say a prayer. You can offer a silent gratitude. So make it your own. And there's things that you may love that other people don't love as much. Me personally, I love to write. So I write probably more than most people do. And, reading, I'm a really slow reader. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks to get that in. And in the morning, I read like one paragraph. It's these little daily things that I read. And it's just enough to get me in the right mindset, but it only takes me, 2 to 5 minutes to read it.
Yeah, I really like the idea of habit stacking because I think so many times we are perfectionists in a way. If we can't do it all, why do it at all? But really the baby steps add up big time in the end. It's not about what you do every day ends up being something big in the end, which
totally.
Your story just shows that because of what you've accomplished with your family. I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
So you can habit stack your habits. How do you do that with kids and their routine?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way. They eat breakfast every morning too. They have to get their shoes on every day. And with kids, again, it's baby steps, building it really small. When we started affirmations, they did one a day. And it was their creativity and their affirmations combined, because we were creating these little affirmation books for them. So we followed the alphabet, and day one it was like, okay, let's pick an A word. And Tyler picked, I am awesome. And Ember picked, I am amazing. So those were their A words. And I said, draw a picture of, what's awesome to you, Tyler. And he drew a little guy with his hands up in the air. And Emmy,
That's awesome.
too, she just scribbled on the page. Like, to her, that was amazing.
So for people that don't know what affirmations really are or why they're so important, especially for kids, do you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kids actually, affirmations are so much easier for them because, like I said before, they don't have all these hang-ups and, stories they've been telling themselves their whole lives like adults do. So for kids, they really don't feel like they're lying to themselves when they say, I am awesome, I'm brave, I'm creative. So for kids, keep it super simple. I am, and a word. For adults, because we have all these hang-ups and stuff, oftentimes we do feel like we're lying to ourselves when we're like, I am a money magnet, or, whatever affirmations are out there, like, the Saturday Night Live skit, the Smalley guy, like, gosh darn it, people like me, they kind of get a bad rap. So what I kind of like to tell people is, if you don't feel it in your heart that you are that thing that you're saying you are every day, like, your mind's just going to kind of reject it. So instead of saying I am, say like I am committed to, or I am becoming, or I don't know, what's another one? I'm willing to. So it just kind of opens up your heart space and your mind space a little bit more. So you're like, I'm on my way to being that thing. I might not be it yet, but I want to get there, and I'm committed to it, and I'm willing, and I'm able, and right. I will get there.
and I think the yet is the best word.
Oh yeah, I am whatever yet.
Because I do that with my son too. Whenever he says, I can't do something, which he doesn't say much anymore because that vocabulary is out.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yeah, I can't do it yet. But I'm working on it, and I will be able to someday.
And we do our affirmations in the car on the way to school. That's another way we have it, Stack. So on the way to school, I am awesome. I am kind. It will be a great day. And I feel like it's made a difference in his attitude too. Mm-hmm. So I've seen the difference.
Yeah. And I mean, you were asking too, like, how has it kind of changed over time? So for Tyler's affirmations, now that he has them memorized and he can just like spout them out, I'll slow him down sometimes. And I'm like, hey buddy, what does it mean to you to be moving up? And he has to kind of think about it. And he's like, well, or, it opens up that conversation. So.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing, because I think so many people just don't realize the importance of doing those things, because it's not something that's talked about very much. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I really liked in your book is that you actually give a lot of details and the importance of reading. And I was a teacher for many years, and so this was my thing. Teaching reading is what I loved. And so this is something I do with my son every night, but I look around and I see so many people not doing this, and it makes me so sad. So do you want to go into a little bit why it's important to read and your routine for reading?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, if you want to have a kid who loves reading, they have to see you reading, first of all, and you have to read with them. And, I think unless they hold a physical book in their hands and have a loving person reading it to them, they're not really going to get that connection with books and develop that love of reading and learning that we all want for our kids. So, I mean, that's why I think it's so important. And I think it's important in the morning, too, because sometimes the day just gets away from us, right? And sometimes bedtime is hectic and the kids are just so tired. They're not.
I'm so tired.
I mean, we're so tired. Like, it's really hard to, like, be fun and playful at bedtime, like, hey, let's read this story. But in the morning, you know, to have them come and snuggle up on you, and it doesn't have to take long. Like most kids' books take less than 5 minutes to read anyway. And a lot of times I'll read while they're eating breakfast. So
That's a good idea too.
Yeah, they're eating breakfast anyway, and I just pull out a book. By the time I'm done the book, they're done eating, we move on. And
So what are your favorite children's books?
Oh man, what a great question. I really love, there's this book called Spoon, and kind of the story is about the spoon, and you know, he's kind of jealous of the fork and the knife and the chopsticks. And then it flips, and then, you know, like fork is jealous of him, and so is knife. They're like, oh, spoon gets to do all these things we don't get to do. And then in the end, he kind of discovers like he's unique and he should be proud of who he is. So I love that one. There's this whole series of books, like What to Do with an Idea, What to Do with a Problem, What to Do with a Chance. Those are great. There's a book of guided meditations for kids called Nursery Rhyme Meditations that we really love.
I will be checking that one out because I hadn't heard of that one before.
Yeah, it's written by a doctor, and it's really cool. Like they're all rhyming, but it just settles the kids down, and it takes them through kind of a visualization, most of them. And there's one for gratitude, there's one for mindful eating, there's all kinds of different ones. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I will put those in the show notes as well so people can check those out so you don't have to remember them.
I'm totally drawing a blank right now on kids' books. There's so many that we love. There's a new one called Happy Dreamer that's really cool. There's some great ones for affirmations too. There's one by Wayne Dyer. I think it's called Incredible Me. And there's one by Louise Hayes. I think it's just called I Am Affirmations. And it kind of explains to kids what affirmations are and gives them different ones that they can say. So.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about too is you mentioned this in your book about how you came to have a school in your arrangement that you have because it was a bit different than most families.
For homeschooling?
Mm-hmm. Because your child was missing a lot of school and you realized that's okay because we can do something else. There's a solution to this problem.
Yeah, so Tyler went to public kindergarten and he loved it. He did great. We love our school district, actually. But we travel a lot. And that's something Mike and I, when we got married, we were kind of like, we're not going to stop traveling just because we have kids. But traveling and public school don't really go hand in hand. So we kind of got like a little slap on the wrist in kindergarten because we had maxed out the days he could miss. And they kind of told us, you know, we're pretty lenient in kindergarten, but come first grade, we're not as lenient. And so we're like, okay, like maybe we need to find a different solution for this. And so we went to every public school in our area, and then I had a couple friends who homeschooled, so I was like, maybe we should look into that too. And there's actually this great homeschool resource center in our town. So we went and interviewed there too. And, you know, every place we went, we asked the same question, like, what if we wanted to spend the whole month of January in Colorado? And that's the reaction we got from most of them.
Oh no!
They were like, you know, you could like feel them cringe. And, you know, they'd say stuff like, oh, our school offers longer breaks, or like the kids don't want to miss that much school. And we're like, yeah, not really the answer we're looking for. And then we asked the same question at Open Connections, and they were like, without even batting an eye, like, oh yeah, people do that all the time. And we're like, oh my gosh, we found our home. So we enrolled the kids, and now they go there 3 days a week. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Like they're getting this structure that OC offers that I'm not so great at, but they're also getting this flexibility where we can have these really cool experiences with them and travel as much as we want. And then what's not in the book is this last year we bought a house in Colorado. So now we split our time seasonally. We come to Colorado in the summer and the winter, and we're in Pennsylvania in the spring and the fall. And, you know, we couldn't really do that if they were in a traditional school environment. And
yeah, I really like that story because it just goes to show that there's a solution for every problem. I think sometimes we feel stuck, like, I can't travel, I'm just stuck. But if you want something, you'll find a way to get it. And I think
exactly.
you guys have.
Yeah, and I mean, we get to do the coolest stuff with our kids now, too, because, you know, last year was the big solar eclipse. So we planned this trip. We went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming with 20 other families, and we went and saw the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. You know, the kids got to experience geysers firsthand, and then we, you know, checked out some books at the library so they could understand what the heck was happening there.
And that's a better education than the schools a lot of times.
Exactly, because, you know, then they have an experience to put with that book. You know, if they just read a book, yeah, great. But to see Old Faithful and then go read that book because they're curious, like, what the heck's happening under the earth that makes that happen? And, you know, then they want to know more. And, you know, we got to see the full solar eclipse, which was so cool. And at the top of the mountain, there was this astronaut talking about, you know, following your dreams and shooting for the stars. And, you know, like, how cool to hear that from a real astronaut, you know? You know, I can tell them to go shoot for the stars, but they're not going to listen to me.
And I think it just opens up the experiences. So later on, they'll have all those memories, and it opens up the future then as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now we've kind of built this network of other families that we know who are also living similar lives, and we get together and do these cool trips, and it's really fun.
So if you had to suggest just one resource to mothers, what would that be?
Like a parenting book or something?
Yeah, anything. Like, what do you think would be most helpful for mothers with children trying to get by on a daily basis?
Read Dr. Shafali's books. She's amazing, and I highly recommend them. And, you know, her philosophy is kind of the same as mine. It's that anything that's showing up in your kids is probably something you need to work on. And she just puts it so eloquently, though. So I highly recommend reading anything by her. Also, Brene Brown.
I love Brene Brown.
Reviews. She's amazing. Any of her books, I also highly recommend. So.
And where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a blog. It's called thegratefulparent.com. You can go there. There's like a little contact link if you want to contact me directly, or on Facebook. I have a Facebook group, The Miracle Morning for Parents and Families. I'm in there literally every day, so if you tag me, I'll see it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
I think this can be very helpful for many people, myself included.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica.